I hired 3 people in Nong Khai, a quiet town on the edge of the Mekong across from Laos, without ever shaking a single hand. Every interview, every year hired happened over a video call from my desk, and I braced for exactly one outcome. Then Monday morning broke it wide open. If building a life and business in Thailand is where your head is at, subscribe and hit like so the next breakdown finds you. Here's what I expected, and I want you to sit in it with me for a second. I run a small agency that serves US clients everything on New York deadlines, and a couple of years back, I packed the whole operation up and moved it here. I was done with the grind. Done with the winters, done with a tax bill that grew faster than the business did, done watching every dollar of margin get eaten before it reached me. So when I hired Notploy and Anshan off a screen, I figured I already knew what I was buying. Strangers. People you hire through a webcam stay screen deep, I told myself. They log in at 9, they log off at 5, and they treat you like a foreign voice paying into their bank account. That was the gamble I thought I was taking. That was the part I braced for. If you have ever hired someone you never met in person and lay awake that night wondering what on earth you just did, you already know the exact feeling I'm describing. It's not the work you doubt, it's the not knowing. The whole thing happened on this laptop. At the desk, you'd picture coffee going cold, 3 faces stacked in a little grid on the screen. I never flew anyone in. I never drove out to shake a hand. Every interview, every follow-up call, every, okay, you're hired, went through a webcam while they sat 2 provinces away. And I'll tell you now, the money side of this worked out clean. It's the Monday morning after that broke me open, before the sun was really up in a way I did not see coming. But you need the numbers first, because the numbers are the whole reason I rolled the dice at all. So Nong Khai, it sits right on the edge of the Mekong, up in the far northeast. And if you stand on the riverfront at dusk, you're looking straight across the slow brown water at Laos on the other bank. It's quiet. In the evening, you can smell the charcoal smoke starting up along the night market. A song thew rattles up the road. A 10-baht bowl of noodles steams on a cart, and the whole town moves at about 1/3 of the speed of my old life. That's the point. I can run a US-facing agency from a place like this, hit every New York deadline, and pay Nong Khai prices to do it. And that's the real reason I did it this way. It was never about the view. Do the math on your own payroll for a second. 3 capable people, fully loaded, benefits and all. Hold that number in your head while I hand you mine. Back in the States, 3 people like that ran me north of $18,000 a month. Easy. And that's before benefits even enter the room. 18 grand a month, month after month, just to keep 3 chairs filled. That's a mortgage payment a week, every single week, walking out the door before I earned a dime on top of it. Here in Nong Khai, Not came on at 32,000 baht, about $900 a month. And when I first started pricing the whole move out, the part that nearly sank me wasn't a salary like that. It was the noise. Everybody's got a loud opinion on the non-B business visa, on the labor office, on how you're supposed to hire people locally. And half the folks shouting the loudest have never actually done a day of it. I got tired of watching good people chase this stuff from the wrong places. So the answers I wish somebody had handed me back then are all collected in One Way Guide, the ebook inside the One Way Club. Stop scrambling for advice from the wrong places. Join thousands of others in the One Way Club. It walks you straight through the paperwork and the real hiring math for a move like this, so you stop guessing at the stuff that actually costs you money. It won't make the filings vanish. And honestly, it's not for someone just daydreaming about the idea. It's for people actually getting ready to move and build. The link's right down in the description, abroadwithsawyer.sj-office.store. Okay, back to the team. Ploy came on at 28,000 baht, Anshan at 26,000 baht, 3 real jobs, 3 real people, all offered and accepted over a screen. Line each one of those numbers up against home, and it stops looking like a payroll and starts looking like a rounding error. The whole 3-person team over here cost me less than a single junior hire cost me back in the States, not less than the department, less than 1 kid, 2 years out of college with a laptop and a login and a lot to learn. Read that line back slowly, because it is the whole reason this move pencils out at all. If you've ever run the numbers on your own US payroll and felt your stomach genuinely drop, this right here is the arithmetic that pulled me clean across the Pacific. So add Knots, 32,000, Ploy's 28, and Anshan's 26 together, and my full team burn landed on one single number, a number that came out lower than what that 1 junior hire cost me back home. And I'm about to open that number right up and show you the papers sitting behind it. So here's that number, said plane, around $2,400 a month. That's the whole team, not Ploy and Anshan, 3 salaries, all in, landing on 1 figure. Back home, I once carried a single junior hire, 1 kid, fresh out of school, who cost me more than that every month before he'd earned a nickel of benefits. Sit with that for a second. My entire crew in Nong Khai runs cheaper than the least expensive person I ever put on a US payroll. That's not me rounding kindly, and it's not a metaphor. That's the deposit that actually left my account. So the money worked, good. Now here's the part everyone warns you about, the part that supposedly turns the whole dream into a filing cabinet nightmare. The paperwork, every American who's ever thought about this hits the same wall in their head. The visa, the work permit, the picture of yourself spending your first year in Thailand chained to a government counter, stamping forms you can't read while some official shakes his head at you. So let me show you what it really cost me, because the real number is boring, and boring is exactly what you want here. My non-B business visa and the work permit side that goes with it, the whole legal spine that lets me run a company here and put local people on the books, came to roughly 25,000 baht all in. That's about $700 one time. Compare that to what a lawyer back in the States quoted me just to stand up a clean company structure, a few $1,000s before anybody had done anything. Here it was 700 once, and it covered the whole thing. If the visa and the work permit are the exact things scaring you off this whole idea, watch how boring this actually gets once someone who knows the office handles it. Because I didn't handle it, my accountant did. Her name's Kun Mali, a small, unhurried woman who keeps her reading glasses pushed up into her hair until the exact second she needs them. She's walked more nervous foreigners through the Nong Khai labor office than I will ever meet in my life. I brought her my mess of documents, half of them the wrong version, and she just squared the stack on her desk, tapped it twice with 1 finger, and said, "You go home. I call you when it's done." That was it. That was my big, terrifying immigration battle, a woman tapping a pile of paper and telling me to go home and stop worrying. And she meant it. She carried the filings into the labor office herself. The photos, the company documents, the medical certificate, the stamps, the whole ritual that lives in those forum horror stories about grown men crying at counters. A few weeks later, done. I paid the 25,000 baht once, and it held. It didn't come back for more. It didn't quietly turn into a subscription to my own anxiety. It held. That's the word I want you to keep. Held. And that's the thing. Nobody tells you in the panic posts. Once the legal side is set, you just work. My days in Nong Khai settled into a rhythm I never had a chance at in the States. The town wakes up slow. Temple bells, before the light's even up, the river fog sitting on the water. I'd keep the mornings here for me and the team, and I'd take my US client calls at night because that's the one honest tax of the time zone. The East Coast is 11, 12 hours behind me, so a 4 o'clock meeting in New York is 3 in the morning here if you're stupid about it. So I'm not stupid about it. I front load the calls into my evening, which is their morning, and everybody's fresh. That's the whole trick. My winters back home used to be gray commutes and a heating bill that made me wince. Now the hardest part of my day is remembering which side of the clock my client's sitting on. So the money worked, the papers held, the system ran clean. By every number I could put in a spreadsheet, I had built something cheap and legal and quiet, and I still went to bed that first Sunday certain I'd built a payroll, not a team. Tell me you haven't felt this, the deal is done, the money makes sense, and you still can't shake the feeling you just wired trust to strangers. Because that's what it was. I had hired 3 human beings I'd never stood in a room with, never shook a hand, never bought one of them a coffee. Every single "you're hired" I said to a face on a screen from my desk while they sat 2 provinces away in kitchens I'd never seen. And lying there Sunday night, that's the exact thing my brain kept circling. These people don't know me. To them, I'm a foreign voice that pays into a bank account. They'll log in at 9, they'll log off at 5, they'll do the tasks fine, and they'll stay screen deep, forever polite, competent, and 1,000 miles away on the inside. I'd bought labor. That's what I told myself, in the dark. You cannot buy the other thing over a video call. You can't hire loyalty out of a man you have never met in the flesh. I remember the exact shape of that doubt because I remember the room. Dark, warm, the window cracked open to the Mekong, the far bank glowing faint where the Laos side sits across the water. Every dollar figure had checked out, and I still felt like I'd made a bet I couldn't cover, that the human part of this whole move, the part I actually cared about, was the one line item I'd overpaid for and could never return. Then came Monday at 6:40 in the morning, before the market down the street had even set up its tables, before the charcoal smoke rolled through and the songthu started grinding up the hill, my phone rang. A video call. And when the screen lit up, it wasn't one face. It was all three of them at once, together, in one room. And what I was looking at on that little screen at 6:40 on a Monday is the thing this whole video is really about. And what I was looking at made no sense for a second. 3 people I had hired to work alone from their own kitchens, 2 provinces away from each other on the map I'd drawn in my head. Yet there they were, shoulder to shoulder, one room, one camera, not the tall one, the one who always wears that faded blue Chelsea shirt, the England Football Club, worn soft at the collar, was holding the phone, and he was grinning. Over the weekend, without a word to me, he'd gone and rented a little shop house office down by the river on his own initiative. Nobody told him to, nobody budgeted for it. He just looked at the setup I'd handed him, 3 logins, 3 kitchens, 3 separate quiet, and decided that wasn't good enough. So he fixed it himself. He'd carried 2 desks in over that weekend, actually carried them, pushed them together in the middle of the floor so nobody was working with their back to anyone. Then he pulled Ploy and Anchan in off their laptops and their kitchen tables and said, come work here with me together. Not because a boss asked, because he wanted it that way. We wanted a real office boss, he said, and he tilted the camera. Slow, a little proud, like a man showing off a house he built with his own hands. On the wall behind him was a whiteboard, and it was already covered that week's client list, every account, deadlines beside them, all of it in Knott's handwriting. They'd been in that room since Saturday, sorting out how they were going to run my company better than I'd told them to. And I just sat there in the dark at my desk, coffee going cold, staring at a whiteboard 400 miles away with my whole client roster on it. He kept panning. There was a fan in the corner, one of those cheap plastic stand fans already going, a kettle on a little side table because you can't work a full day in Nong Khai without something hot and something cold within arm's reach. And a stack of noodle bowls, the 10-baht noodle bowls you get from the cart on the corner, the ones that cost you about 30 cents and taste like somebody's grandmother made them. They'd stocked lunch for a week. Before the week even started, they had turned a bare shop house into a working office in 48 hours. And they'd done it in the quiet, without asking, before I'd woken up on the far side of the world to even notice. Now, here's the part that put a lump in my throat. I'm running the math in my head while he's talking a rented room in this town, right by the water. That's got to be a cost. That's got to be a line item somebody's going to bring to me. So I asked, who's paying for the office? Not shrugged, like it was the strangest question he'd ever heard. They'd split it, the 3 of them, about 4,000 baht a month between them, which comes out to somewhere around $120, call it 40 a piece, a rounding error against their pay. Nobody asked me to cover it. It never crossed their minds to ask. They wanted a real office, so they bought a real office out of their own pockets and got back to work. Read that back for a second. The people I never met, never shook a hand, never bought a coffee, never sat across the table from paid for their own office before I could even offer to. When was the last time a team you hired in person, in a room with a handshake and an onboarding folder, did anything close to that? Because I'll tell you what I braced for. I told you at the top, I went to bed that Sunday dead certain I'd built a payroll and not a team. I figured strangers stay strangers when you meet them through a screen, that they'd log on at 9, log off at 5, do the task, cash the transfer, and treat me like a foreign voice paying into a bank account. Screen deep. That was the gamble I thought I'd taken with my eyes open. That was the disappointment I'd already made peace with. And this was the thing I didn't expect. Not the distance, not the detachment, the exact opposite. 3 people I had never once stood in the same room with had on their own turned themselves into a tighter, prouder, hungrier outfit than any office I ever ran back in the States. And I ran offices there for 15 years. Glass-walled ones, catered ones, ping pong table ones, the whole song. I never once had a team rent their own room by a river because they wanted to sit closer to the work. That's the surprise I saved for you. Not the money. The money I understood going in, this I didn't. This came from a direction I never thought to look. So let me hand you the whole thing clean one time, the way I'd lay it out for a friend who called me asking if he could really do this. A full 3-person team in Nong Khai, Not, Ploy, and Anchan, real salaries, real people, real work, runs me right around $2,400 a month, all in. That's less than what one single junior hire cost me back home before I ever left. The paperwork everybody warned me would eat me alive, the non-B business visa, the work permit side of it, my accountant Kun Mali walking the filings through the labor office that ran about 25,000 baht one time, roughly $700. I paid it once and it held. It still holds, and the loyalty, the room by the river, the split rent, the whiteboard, the fan and the kettle and the noodle bowls, the loyalty is the line item you can't put a price on. It never shows up in the spreadsheet. You cannot budget for it, you cannot buy it, and it is the single best return this whole move ever paid me. So run the whole thing one more time against your own numbers. Whatever you're paying right now, 1, salary, 2, your own burn, the office lease you signed in a city where winter lasts 5 months, set it next to $2,400 a month and a one-time $700 in papers. Run it honestly. And then ask yourself plainly, what is actually stopping you? Because it isn't the money. You just watch the money work. It isn't the paperwork that's one afternoon with the right accountant and a fee smaller than a plane ticket. And it sure isn't the fear that a team you build from a screen stays cold, because I brought you the proof this morning. At 20 to 7 in a shop house that smelled like fresh charcoal from the market setting up outside the door. This is what it costs. $2,400 a month, $700 once. This is what you'd need: the right town, the right accountant, the nerve to hire people you trust before you've shaken their hands. A well-prepared move gets you there without cutting a single one of your standards. It's real, it adds up, and it is well within your reach.